Hello everyone, this is Fieldmaster Viktor Neustroev. Thank you for joining our workshop today. Today we are going to talk about final combination. So you may also use the word finishing combinations. I'm talking about such combinations which allow us to win the game at the final stage of the game. So for example, when we had a strong attack and we are just one step left from winning the game. Why I decided to choose this topic for today? Mainly because this is what some chess players really struggle with. So they add pressure, they dominate in the game. Sometimes it is done by means of sacrifice, but then they can hardly find the final tactical blow. So that's why I decided to devote this workshop to this specific topic. Fine. So before we start, I see that there are several people who joined this workshop for the first time. Can you please introduce yourself a little? For example, which country you are from and what's your current rating? It can be either FIDE ELO or just chess.com ELO. As for me, I am a FIDE master, so my current rating at the moment is 2283. It was 23 and 5, but I just dropped it a little. By the way, yesterday I participated in a Blitz tournament here in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I scored 7 and 5, 7.5 of 11. Well, didn't play very well, but I'm not a good blitz player, so I played better than I usually play. And it's mainly because I started playing more blitz games on chess.com. So I've started playing in the Title Tuesdays tournaments on chess.com, and it significantly improved my rating there. So I can actually share with you. So this is my profile on chess.com. And this is my bleed statistics. So when I started, it was 22 and something. Now it's 24, 34. So just participating in such blitz tournaments helped me a lot. Fine, but let's go back to the topic today. Fine, we are going to start just in a minute. I need to do one last preparation. So today I expected this webinar to be a little shorter than I usually do, mainly because of my personal needs. So I was going to attend my daughter's soccer match that is likely to start immediately after we finish. But unfortunately, this match was cancelled due to bad weather or maybe some other issues. I don't know. The bad weather was yesterday. Today it's fine. Anyway, it was cancelled and now we can do a regular webinar, but I prepared 7 different positions for you so we can discuss them. So, well, what we should talk about? First of all, in complicated positions with mutual chances, it's very important to prevent your opponent of doing any counterplay. And for that means you should use you should find these final or finishing combinations, which either lead to a technically winning position or to checkmate. What are these conditions that tell us that probably such a final blow exists in the position? Well, for example, a weak king, or weaknesses in the enemy camp, or maybe some tactical motives that we can instantly see. Very poor placement of the enemy pieces, and possibility to pass the game to a winning endgame. Let's start with this position. What do you think? Well, it's materially equal position taken from the game between Alexander Alekhine and Akiba Rubinstein. What do you think white should be doing in this position? It seems that white should play on a checkmate, but how exactly? So who can tell me? Okay, so Dan thinks it should be queen c2 and bishop c6, threatening with a pin, and also knight g5, threatening to checkmate on h7. Fine. Eros thinks that white should bring the queen to the king side. That's absolutely right. But how to bring the queen to the king side as fast as possible? Who can tell me? With rook c5, so you want to sacrifice the rook in order to bring the queen? Well, I don't think it's promising. Also, there is a bishop, so you can hardly, well, even if they take, there is a bishop. So bishop h7. So you want to get rid of the bishop to bring the queen to the game. That's a good idea, but bishop h7 is unlikely to work. If you start with this move, well, he can take. Then what? Queen a4. But now he has what? He has g6 at least. He has g6, and if you probably should start with this move. King g8, then you try this, he does bishop g7, and queen h7 is not checkmate. Okay, John suggests bishop b1 to retreat the bishop, to bring the bishop back and then retreat with the queen. Yes, but, well, bishop b1 makes sense. There is no bishop b7 because you simply capture on d7. If you play such a move, well, maybe they play g6 to stop it. Bishop g7, king g8, something like that. So you should play quickly. Here the game continued with knight g5. What this knight g5 is doing? Yeah, knight to g5. So this is what Rem said. What this knight is doing? Let's decide. So we are threatening with knight f7. Rook takes f7, then queen takes e8 at the very least. So that's why they have to prepare. Well, they probably have to move the rook. Maybe here. Yeah, actually, maybe here to not blunder. Because if they play this rook there, it's still knight f7 and they still lose. Well, at least a pawn, but actually because the king's position is exposed, it's totally losing. So they have to play this move. And this is where I actually want you to find a tactical blow that decides the game. Your task, again, as we said, your task is to bring your queen to the king side as soon as possible, as well as isolate the enemy king from the other pieces. So what do you think? Bishop h7? Knight f7 right now doesn't work. So what's the purpose? Rook takes f7. Knight e6, f takes e6, queen takes. Yeah, well, I don't think it works. They can just play this move and block with the rook on h6. You cannot even play this move because the bishop. And sacrificing means that now the queen does the same function as the bishop did before. So this is what most chess players struggle with. We need to make a threat as well as find a way of how to bring the queen to the king side. So, well, the queen can get to the king side by c4 and h4, by g2 to h3, through g2 to h3, for example. That's why the move we should play is a move with the bishop. Bishop h7 doesn't do anything and also allows them to play g6 and let the king to escape, also bring the bishop to the defense. That's why bishop g6, which simply stops the g-pawn movement. Okay, thanks, Arush. That's absolutely right. How does it work? Well, f takes g6, queen g2. So now you can successfully move it to h3. Even if they try to move the bishop, well, I said I used c5, but it can be even b4. Still queen h3. Queen h3, king g8. Queen h7. This. Take. Check. This. Take. This. This. So it's checkmate. So same thing with bishop c5. So queen e5, this is what they played. But queen e5 is already a blunder. After queen e5, we win material. Because with bishop g6, we not just hanged our bishop, we created a threat of winning exchange. And now the position is absolutely winning. So queen f5, trying to trap it. But who cares? By the way, actually, maybe here you may experience some issues. What do you think we should do in this position? Bishop e8 to save the bishop, or you have better suggestions? Well, so here it's not wasn't obligatory important to find the best move in this position. So bishop e8 wins, queen c7 allows you to save the bishop. What else? And queen c7. Well, rook fd1 was played in the game, and I think it's the strongest option. Why so? So rook takes d1 because it's hanging. And then this bishop is hanging. So if they decide to take there, they lose on c8, and then it's just a completely winning endgame. So queen a6, there is nothing to talk about. This is what happened in the game. Maybe queen f3 was not forced, but b6 is vulnerable. Queen d3 will be played anyway. There will be a passed pawn, so it's completely losing. So here your task was to find bishop g6 and realize that once you bring the queen to the king side, it's over. And you can do it with through several routes. And the one with queen g2, queen h3 seems to be the most promising one because he cannot stop it. For example, if you do it through c4, there is rook d4. Okay, let's continue. What about this position? So white has a rook and a pawn for two bishops. But we see that the king is weak. Why the king is weak? The king doesn't have any squares to escape. Well, he can go to g8, but if you attack through the back rank, it's game over. And the other thing that you notice here, you notice a tactical strike, a discovered attack. Once you play knight g6, it might work. But knight g6, h takes g6, rook f8, king h7, and what's then? Because we have a very weird material ratio then. Two rooks versus three minor pieces. And, well, maybe white is better, but is this enough to win? So knight g6, for example, king g8 is a total blunder. Rook f8. When knight jumped to g6, it was also taking the f8 square and the rook, so rook f8 is checkmate. After knight g6, h takes g6 is a must, rook f8, king h7. How to continue? If you want to follow this line, you definitely should work on the continuation. Otherwise, you leave your king more vulnerable on h2. And for example, if you play any queen move, which is not a check, then he invades our camp with queen e2 or queen c2 or something like that. So, what comes to your mind? Rook b1 to e1. There is also rook takes b7, but rook takes b7, well, maybe rook b7 works. Then queen e2 probably. Okay, so let's calculate the line starting from the beginning. So knight g6 pawn takes, rook takes f8 check, king h7, and rook b7. After which the game continues with queen e2 check. The queens are exchanged. Queen takes, bishop takes, rook c7. Yeah, rook c7 is promising, but then maybe bishop f3. So it's not clear. I think white is winning then. But don't you have a better move? Rook b1 to e1 seems to be quite slow. What if I say that you can checkmate even then? So knight g6, h takes g6, rook takes f8, king h7, and there is a checkmate. And I think that's like 80% of you reject the next move because you think that this move is completely losing. Yeah, it's queen h6. So I understand how people's minds work. So when you sacrifice the queen and you see there is no immediate win, then you definitely consider that this is a wrong move because without the queen you lose the game. Well, chess players think that the queen is the strongest piece. Without the queen, it's over. Well, it can be over if there is no tactical strike then. So sacrificing the queen on h6 works this time. If they take with a king, it's rook h8 made. So that's why they take with a pawn in that position. But if they take with a pawn, it makes the 7th rank vulnerable. And after rook b7, they can only block on d7 or e7 or f7. But all these squares are protected only once. So it's simply just a sacrifice, which doesn't allow successfully to defend the position for black. So knight g6 takes. Well, this is mate. Rook takes, king goes to h7, and queen h6. So taking with the king is a disaster. Taking with a pawn leads to checkmate anyway. This. How did I find it? So once I visualized this position, I also thought that the king is still vulnerable. I can take on b7, but if it's not a check, maybe it doesn't make sense. And I also realized that the only squares allowed for the king are located on the h file. So having this check, rook h8, if the rook is not captured, it's just checkmate. That's why I came up with queen h6 idea. So queen h6, pawn takes, and this leads to checkmate. Fine. Let's continue with the next example. What can you say about this position? Do you see an immediate idea that may work here? So what's your first candidate move that comes to your mind? Well, when we are talking about final combinations, we should be looking for different type of combinations. So for mating combinations that allows us to win material based on forks, pins, or trapping pieces, or we can combine several tactical motives. We are also looking for exchanging combinations in case if we have extra material, because exchanging combinations will allow us to simplify or to pass the game to the end game with extra material. Well, also we may look for how to promote our pawns to queens, but this is not the example. So this position doesn't refer to it. There are no passed pawns. What you have to do to be able to learn how to finish the game with a tactical combination, you have to practice tactics a lot. You have to notice tactical motives, you have to recognize them during the game, and you have to calculate the lines properly. In order to do all that stuff, you should just easily work on tactics by doing tons of puzzles, or work on tactics in a different way. For example, by studying my course on Chessable, train your tactical vision. Well, if you want, of course, or just solve tons of puzzles. And at some point, you'll realize that you become much better with tactics. Okay, so candidate moves. Bishop f7, queen b3. What else? Trapping the queen. Well, the queen is almost trapped, but I don't know how we can attack it. The other weakness is f7. It's absolutely right. So f7 is a weakness. And if you take and then play queen b3, the king can hardly escape. But you can increase pressure with knight g5. So this is one idea. The other idea is to play knight g5 or queen b3 right away. But the problem of that is that they take our bishop on d5, and the attack on f7 becomes not so tough for black. So candidate moves, exactly, Arush. So exactly, your candidate moves are right. But I would say that first of all, we have to calculate this, because such moves like queen b3 or knight g5 lead to knight takes the bishop, and we don't have a bishop to attack. And if we exchange the queens like that, we're unlikely to win with a combination. Maybe later in the endgame we will win because of our better pieces placement, but not this time. So bishop f7 is the first move to look at. Well, king takes, because if the king doesn't take, we have extra material, we take the rook. So king takes. Then what to start with? We have two options, knight g5 and queen b3. If we start with knight g5, they can escape. Where do they escape? If they escape to f8, there is a fork, and there is also queen b3 as a mating threat. So that's why it's unlikely to happen. So probably they escape to g6. And then we can still increase pressure and play maybe queen f3, threatening with queen f5, which is likely to lead to a checkmate. But we can also start with queen b3, and this line seems to be more promising. Why? Again, if the king goes to f8, then knight g5, and we are threatening checkmate on f7. The only way he can parry this checkmate is to block the diagonal with one of his pieces, like the knight, for example, d5, but this is simply just a knight blunder. So at least we win material back, maybe even more. We can fork on e6, take on d5 also, take the rook on d8 with a check. So all that stuff works. What else? So take. Which rook to f8? The king is on f8, so the rook cannot go there. Yeah, king goes to f8, and with knight g5, you're threatening to checkmate with the king. So that's why after bishop f7, king f7, and queen b3 check, I expect black to play king to g6. How would you continue your attack then? Knight h4, right? Knight h4. So these squares are unavailable. So the king goes to h5, which allows you to bring the queen to the attack. Queen f3. The only thing they can do is to capture that knight. But then queen g3, and after king goes back, it's queen g5 mate. That's it. So let's make these moves on the board. Here, well, if the king moves, we at least win exchange. If the king takes, then this move. Moving to there, to f8, means knight g5. Well, they can try to play knight d5 to prevent this checkmate. This is the only thing I see. But, well, you can take here. This is one option, but then they take on g5. So probably the simplest way is just to deliver this check, and after king g8 or king f7, take the rook. we win exchange and we win a piece back due to this pin. Even if the king was on f7, there still would be a pin. So that's why the king has to escape to g6, knight h4, queen h5, and we bring our queen to the attack. It's likely to be a checkmate. Even if there is no checkmate right away, the king on h4 doesn't survive. So, for example, with king h2 and this move, we win the game too. But if there is a way to deliver a checkmate by doing checks only, we'd better prefer it, because in such a case, we don't have to calculate anything for black, and it's just easier for us, because if we don't have to calculate any other options rather than a king move for black, then we are unlikely to blunder. Does g3 work? Okay, yes, g3 works. King h3, I'm sure it does. So here, how to checkmate? Like that. Is there anything else? Like this, 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 and this, right? So it's, no, he escapes to f7, so it doesn't work. Okay, then let's do, yeah, queen h5 doesn't work, so let's do this, this, this. He goes that way. How to play in this position? So I have several suggestions. I think that this move is a winning move. You can play rook e3 then. They can stop it. Knight g4 doesn't stop it because queen h1 mate. Bishop c5 stops it. Well, you see, it's not so easy. Yeah, right, right. Yeah, that's mate, so you're right. Well, in my position after bishop c5, I think there is checkmate too, but now I want to play g4, and oh, there is knight e4 also to consider. So queen g3 is checkmate, so that's why this, but then check, king g4, then I take with a rook, and after king f5, this is checkmate. Yeah, queen g3 is a simple move, but you see, it's definitely more simple just to play like that. Fine. So here, your mating combination is based on this tactical motive, on the weakness through the diagonal, and the fact that the enemy king is alone. So these pieces not only doesn't help him, but these pieces also do not allow the king to escape. For example, if the rook was somewhere else, this rook, the king could escape to e8, and that would avoid part of the problems that black finally faced in this line. Okay, let's continue. What about this position? Well, do not forget that white is a minor piece down. So your final combination should either consist of a winning material move, or you should checkmate. Okay, so error suggests queen takes d7 as well as Kertik. Peter says there is a weakness on e5. Peter, how did you recognize that there is a weakness on e5? As for your queen d7 move, guys, well, the idea is nice, but fails. If bishop takes or queen takes, it's knight f6 mate. That's right. But if the king takes, it's not. And you also have your knight hanging. So if this, it's this. That's why it's too early to sacrifice the queen. The e5 pawn is pinned and attacked. Okay. Well, actually, you're right. The main issue is e5. For example, if you capture on e5, well, let's just assume that they cannot play queen c6, but definitely they can, and that's why I don't like this move. But let's talk about e5 pawn. Once you take, it seems that they cannot capture neither with the knight nor with a pawn. If they capture with a knight, simply knight f6, because your queen d7 suggestion was to get rid of the knight to play knight f6 successfully with checkmate, which was absolutely right. And here, if the knight takes, knight f6 is checkmate again. If they take with a pawn, they still lose. Who can tell me how do they lose this time? So rook takes e5. This is what your suggestion is. Do you have anything else in mind? Maybe you can checkmate faster than rook e5. Because rook e5, then bishop e7, king f8, and so on. Yes, you can checkmate with knight f6. So knight takes knight, it's the only move, and rook d8. Okay, so based on these ideas that there is checkmate with knight f6 if this knight is gone, and there is a checkmate with rook d8 if the d file is cleared, which move you can suggest for white? So once you find these vulnerabilities, it's easier for you then to come up with a final combination. Yes, exactly. So evaluating tactics shouldn't be just picking moves. So you shouldn't just think about, okay, I can play this, and you calculate all of them. It's too time consuming. What you have to figure out, you should look at the position and decide what are the black's main problems. Here, the king vulnerability. So it's on the open file, just one proper check and the game is over. Then several tactical motives, distraction or annihilation of defense, and knight f6 is made. Opening the file, and then rook d8 is checkmate. So once you see these ideas, the next move comes easier for you. Yes, the next move is rook takes e5. Oh, yeah, rook takes e5. That's absolutely right. And as you see, neither pawn nor knight can capture. So once again, same situation when the pawn captured. Knight f6, checkmate. Knight e5, immediate checkmate. And because rook e5 is a check, the knight is not cannot be captured. So bishop e7 is the only move. Rook e7, king f8. So this is actually where you can stop the analysis. At the very least, you have this move, which allows you to keep your material advantage. It's one extra pawn for a while, but you still have the attack. There is also knight d8 move, which is quite promising. There is rook f7 and then knight d8 move. But if we are talking about, yes, if we are talking about checkmate, then we definitely should bring the queen to the attack. Queen f5. Well, how to defend f7? Well, rook h7 is just a blunder. f6, queen g6. So you can still checkmate on f7 or g7. They have to play knight e5 only. This is a move that attacks the queen and also covers f7. Also f7 is covered with the queen this time. But if you get rid of the knight and take on f7 with your queen, it's still checkmate. However, I'm not sure if you can do it so quickly because you have this as the main issue. So what do you think? How to play? Yeah, so queen f6. But queen f6, rook h7. So they defend. Winning the queen? Well, yeah, it works, but do you have a better move? Knight takes e5. Knight takes e5 works. Yes, it works. Okay, so rook e8 wins the game. This. There was a line to So to capture this, and when they take here, you take there. So you are knight up. Yeah, it's a winning position. So when you do this final combination, you don't really have to calculate the line to the very end. As I said, after rook e5, so it's easy to spot it, right? If you see that neither this nor that works, their only move is bishop e7. And then it's easy to realize that after king f8, you are already ahead in material and you have such moves like that to defend your position. But once this position appears, you see that, okay, I have better options. I can take there and win the queen. I can play queen f5 and threaten checkmate. And starting from this moment, you keep working. So you keep finding better options. Okay. Well, this is what happened in the game. Rook e8, and then you checkmate. Fine, good. If not this move, then actually white is not winning at all. Their knight is hanging, so something like that would lead to a defense. So they could capture on f4. There is no such so many mating threats here because the king gets this square to escape. So black is likely to win the game. So you see, just if white doesn't find the final combination, he may lose the game. Now, this also very often happens in my games when especially when I play blitz. So I'm dominating, I'm almost defeating, but I cannot quickly find a combination, and then I either spend too much time and then start making bad moves because I'm low on time, or I just run out of time. Okay, so here, white to move, well, there is a huge concentration of white's forces along the two files, the G and the H. Also, the king is trapped. So if we have a knight, we can deliver a smothered mate, but this time. Okay, so there is an insight from Brian. The secret to tactical play is to have courage. Well, Brian, you have courage, even too much sometimes. So because very often you play such sacrifices that don't work. Instead of just playing ordinary chess, you sacrifice to make a chess game more adventurous and hoping that you can come up with a combination after that. So, well, you should have courage, but this courage should be based on some concrete variation that you can calculate, or it should be based on some intuition in case if you see that you sacrifice material, not much, just some, like piece, exchange, or a pawn, but then you see that you have a long-term attack and you create a series of threats and you see that your opponent is forced to defend his position, and it's not even clear to calculate to the very end whether he is able to parry your threats or not. So this is where you can sacrifice some material. Okay, so here h7 is attacked with the queen. You can try g6. Okay, good question. Can a player have both tactical and positional talent? Well, a player can be good in both. For example, like Magnus Carlsen. However, usually one specific it's about a mind skill, and so there is a domination of one of these skills over the other one. Like, I'm more a tactical player. For example, Anatoly Karpov is more a positional player. However, it doesn't mean that he's bad with tactics. He's also good in it. Magnus Carlsen is more a positional player, but his tactical skills are also outstanding. Garry Kasparov, also more a tactical player. Okay, so what do we have? here? G6. Well, let's... thanks, Arosh. Yes, you're absolutely right. We're going to talk about it. So this may seem to work, but it doesn't. So you create a threat, but they play h6. You have the bishop that you can sacrifice there, but the problem is that once you sacrifice the bishop, how do you continue? There is still a queen, and you cannot capture because of that, and you cannot get rid of the queen. You can block the queen by sacrificing the pawn, but unfortunately, then you let the enemy king to escape. This is the problem. And you cannot bring more material, so the bishop is trapped with your own pieces. That's why we should use this direct blow that also should be calculated, because once you open the h file or deliver your rook somehow to h5, it's game over. So he takes pawn push. h6 is not available, so he goes to h8. And rook g5. Hanging the rook, but in case if they capture, you open the file and this is checkmate. If not, then rook h5 is a checkmate. So if, for example, the black's position wasn't so cramped, it wouldn't work. If the queen was somewhere else, then they would play rook f8, and after this check, they would escape. But the problem is that the queen was forced to stay on f8 to protect h6. So if, for example, in this position, the queen was on e7, we wouldn't sacrifice the queen ourselves. We would play g6, and then we would continue with bishop h6, forcing them to finally block with the queen and sacrifice the queen. So because the queen was forced to stay on f8, it worked. Queen h7, this and this, opening the h file with a checkmate. Okay, fine. So this one. This is the end game, and in the end game, we usually think about completely different factors and completely different plans. We are thinking about how to attack the enemy weak pawns, how to get some extra pawns, how to advance them and tie enemy pieces down to them, or just promote. However, this exact position tells you that white originally were attacking, and the king's position is compromised. So f7 is a weakness. Also, we have bishops of the opposite color, which means that the enemy bishop cannot protect us that weaknesses that we attack with our light squared bishop. So, okay, what are your suggestions? Then suggest bishop f7. I don't fully understand how it works, because rook can take. So maybe if the king takes, you wanted rook h7 to win that rook, fine. But the problem is that they capture with a rook on f7. Rook e8 with rook f8, and then rook h7 and rook h8. Okay, let's say you do this, I do this, you take there, I take with the king, you take on h7 and threaten checkmate. Fine, let me escape with the king, then what? Rook h8, but the king escapes further. Rook h6 works. Rook h6 doesn't work. Rook h6, bishop takes. So you can check, but then bishop goes back. If you take there, then they just simply cover the back rank. No, it doesn't work. Okay, so g6 can be your potential candidate move. Okay, so Brian wants to continue with this line. Okay, so you sacrifice the rook. Now you suggest rook e7 and take on f7. Let me take here. Which piece do you take on f7? Remember that your bishop is hanging. If you take with a rook, I take on d5. So I don't think it works for you. You probably have to take with a bishop, then king f8, and then you move your bishop somewhere like that. What I can do, just I can keep pushing. I also think that doing this move makes sense, threatening with mate. So you can deliver a check, but it's just a check. You can instead take on e5, which stops this, but then I play rook b2, and now I'm threatening with rook d1 as a checkmate. So probably you have to bring the rook back, but it's just a completely losing position. So rook h6, let's say. Okay, so those of you who suggested g6, can you please specify how exactly it works? So John has a suggestion. Of playing, well, h takes g6. So why h takes g6? I think that's right. H takes g6 is forced. Wait. I don't understand, guys. So rook g1, then g6. Okay, let's talk about rook g1 first. I think g6 is a winning move. Okay, so this, they take there. Now if you play g6, they win your bishop. Oh, no. g6, and if they win your bishop, you have this move, and then you can checkmate on g8. Good point. So, okay. So that's why it should be something else. So king there, and if g6, f takes. You can still capture with this. Yeah, it seems to be a winning position. I can deliver a check, I can take on d5, but yeah, I take on d5, but then I'm down exchange, so it's winning. Rook g1 works. I didn't notice it, to be honest. What did I notice? I noticed g6, so g6 works. We are threatening with g7. G takes h7 and rook e8. If, let's say, rook c8 covering the back rank, then bishop f7 even, and rook h7 after that. If instead it is what? H takes. It's the only move. Then rook e8. And now rook e8 wins because of what? Because of which threat? Yeah, that's right. So you are going to capture on f8 first, king takes, and rook h8 checkmate. And there is nothing that can stop it, actually. Neither moving the pawns nor the rooks, maybe doing checks works, but you just come closer to the rook and it becomes hanging, so no more checks can be delivered. And this is how the game ends. After rook e8, black had to resign because of, well, let me show you, because of this idea, this checkmate. So how did we realize that it is possible here to attack the enemy king? We see that the king has no squares. We see that we trap the king with this pawn. There can be some back rank mating ideas. f7 and h7 are both vulnerable, so that's why we consider how to open the position. Okay. Now let's take a look at this position. At the first glance, white's position looks solid, but just one single blow exposes all the hidden weaknesses. So the white rook defends on f2, right? The queen defends on f1. Yes. If you can distract the queen, you can mate on f1. This bishop is also taking f2. but it's protected by the rook, and it seems to be enough. So yeah, let me give you some time to think. Okay, so there are different opinions. So you suggest rook d1, and then rook d1 doesn't work or almost work. Okay, Eros, can you please explain why you think it almost works? Okay. So rook d1, rook takes d1, queen f2, king h1, and there is nothing. No, there is something. There is something that you're missing, and probably you don't see it because you are not familiar with this mating pattern. Queen g1 is checkmate just. So rook d1 is actually a winning move. So it's distraction and the pin with rook d1. So if he plays a random move, we just take on d2. And we don't have to be afraid of our back rank weakness, because this bishop can always return and block any direct attack through the back rank. So the original idea is to deliver this checkmate, queen g1, so supported by the bishop. If, let's say, they play something else, like queen b5, trying to win the game, we take there, queen c5, well, queen e8, for example, fails. If queen c5 works, just g6. What do you think they have to play then? So why this position with extra exchange is absolutely winning? Of course, they cannot capture there. Rook d1, but queen b5. So I decided to unpin with the queen and attack the bishop. Rook takes, queen takes. Then I decided that black can just, well, now back rank is weak, so it's time to create an escape square. Then what white can do? Why black is winning? d4, well, d4 works, I agree. Well, yes, if you don't see anything better, then just rook d1. But I also wanted to say that white doesn't have any moves, and d4 works actually. So, well, g6, h4, d4, for example. However, it is almost a Zugzwang. If we play h5, how do they play? So, queen b6, queen here. Looks like. But we can play d4 again, so even in this position. And now what? f2 is attacked. They have only the king defending it. Some checks maybe, but just one check, king g7 then. So h5 with h6 ideas, too late. Fine, very nice move, rook d1, right? So it's not easy to point it. Yeah, yeah, queen e2, it's possible, but the rook is hanging. So maybe it's a, well, I think it's a possibility, but still losing. Okay, so fine, we are, oh, huh? Oh, okay, so let me share again. Yes, so rook e2 blocks f1, it's checkmate in one. So we are almost done for today. So I just want to remind you that if you would like to, if you like my work and you would like to support it, there is a link that allows you to donate through the PayPal. Let me show how it works. You click on this link, then you click the button donate, then you enter the amount that you want to donate, and then this PayPal button appears. So you just click on it, enter your PayPal account, and send money directly to my PayPal account. I would appreciate any help. It helps me to prepare better as well as pay to my assistant. Well, it's Feed Master. I think I demonstrated my game against him recently. Yeah, it was at our group class on Friday. I demonstrated the game I played against him. Okay, so for some reason this link didn't work as a link. No. Maybe it works like that. Yeah. It is working. Fine. Fine. Let's continue. We have one example left. By the way, so this Tuesday, I think I'm going to skip Title Tuesday. I have some personal issues, so I have a doctor appointment at this time. That's why I'm not going to play. So there will be no stream on Tuesday. But as usual, there will be a Rapid Arena on Thursday, a group class on Friday, and a webinar next Sunday. So take a look at this position. Black has how many? 5 pieces into the attack, right? Each plays each piece plays its role. So the bishop controls, these bishops control the escape squares. The king cannot move anywhere. Well, these pieces can be used in order to distract or destroy enemy defenders. What do you think may work in this position and help you to deliver checkmate? Title Tuesday is a blitz tournament on chess.com that I usually play every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So I'm streaming it on Twitch. So your suggestion is 95. Let's see how it works. It's a nice move actually, because you threaten to take the knight. Well, what they are likely to do is to take your knight with their knight. What do you think about that? Then just queen b6. Oh, very nice. It would work if there was no other queen on the sixth rank. So I think rook d2 works then. So this, rook d2, threatening with bishop f4. Right. But then they can play rook f1, sacrifice the rook, but avoid checkmate. Don't you think so? Okay, there was another suggestion, like queen takes here and then rook f6. Okay, so what's the point? Knight h4, let's say. Rook takes bishop. Knight takes rook. Queen takes f4. And checkmate is inevitable. Yes, that's right. So rook takes d2 is a winning move. How does it work? There are several continuations we should calculate before we make this final move on the board. So first of all, if they take queen f4, does lead to checkmate because f2 is attacked 3 times and doesn't matter how he plays. You play either queen or bishop to f2. Even if he does queen g3, we can still allow ourselves to play queen f2, and after queen takes queen, bishop takes f2 is checkmate. So rook d2, queen f6 doesn't work. Bishop f2 is checkmate. So rook d2, knight d2. Then queen f4 wins. In the game it was played a different move, but queen f4 wins the game. In the game it was knight d4 played. The idea is to deliver checkmate on e2, and if pawn takes, it's queen d4 mate. Let me show you. So rook d2, knight takes, because what else? If this move, it's this. If this move, then queen f4. And this is still a threat. And this is a mating threat. So queen g3, let's say, queen f1. Knight d2, queen f4 wins because of this deadly threat. So even if he plays rook f1, it's checkmate. Oh, we can actually take on f1. It also works. Even if queen g3, queen f2 wins. Like that. Knight d4 was played in the game and it also worked. So this is a mating threat. How to stop it? Queen h5 or queen d3? By the way, how would you play? Let's say queen h5. d3. So 3 ways. And then, yeah, not rook to e1. You can simply take it. So 3 ways. Queen e4, queen d3, queen h5. And in all 3 cases, and even after rook e1, you have the same. No. After rook e1, you have to take the rook. So if the queen moves, you have 3. You have one combination that wins in all these 3 lines. Who can find it? I'm sure actually Brian can, because he had a similar idea before. So first of all, you should understand that once they take, queen d4 is checkmate. Let's talk about these moves. So queen h5, queen. Yeah, so it's easy. In all these cases, you play knight a2, and he is forced to take it. But then the king is vulnerable because he cannot defend, cannot get defended on this diagonal. So both queen e3 or queen f2 are losses. This is how the game ended. But again, so just there is nothing wrong with this move, and a checkmate on f2 is inevitable. I would play, for example, queen f4. It's more simple. Okay, so good point. Players who start chess later in life are more likely to draw pieces than someone who started as a child. It's true, and chess players who started when in their childhood are more successful. And I think it's mainly because in the childhood you can create these neural nets that help you to recognize patterns and calculate and visualize lines properly. Because if you didn't play chess or didn't play chess seriously in the childhood, it becomes quite complicated for you to visualize the position after several moves and also notice these tactical strikes. But kids can point out these tactical ideas, tactical patterns, and geometrical motifs quickly. I think it's mainly because of creation of these neural nets in your mind that can help you. So we actually don't have many kids at our class. So how many? Eros is a kid. Who else? Yeah. So okay. Anyway, can a normal player participate in a Title Tuesday tournament? No, you have to be a title player, at least a national master. And chess.com should confirm it, or it's better to say verify it. So no. Okay, so let's do a kind of a summary of our event today. What you may remember. So there were 7 positions, I think, that we were discussing today. Oh, no, 8 positions that we were discussing, and in all these positions, there were some specific features that you had to notice. What these features are again. So either the king was weak, usually, or there were weaknesses in the enemy camp, or their pieces were not placed properly so that we could take advantage of that, or there was a possibility to just simplify. And you don't have to always visualize the combination to the very end. You have to visualize to that moment where you think that it's winning. For example, if you're down a piece, you should visualize to the moment where you win this material back, and you then believe that your position is better because you still maintain this pressure on the king, for example. There is still an attack that helps you to win. Do you have any questions for today? Well, that was a webinar that was devoted mainly to your tactical skills. So the next one will be, no, not sure yet, but the next one will be devoted to more positional or strategic ways. But the next one is actually will be devoted to an attack. It's not a part of our group lessons, but yeah, so something related to immediate attack on the enemy king. So something like that. This is what we are going to talk on the next workshop. So fine, let's finish for today. I'm going to publish a new video on YouTube devoted to the Rook and games. I will send you the link to email, as well as I will send you the link to the recording of this event. And I'm going to make a post on chess.com in my blog, where you, if you want, you can download combinations. You can download these games in PGN, or just go through the analysis on chess.com. So thank you for coming. Uh-huh. Uh, I believe in talent. So, but it doesn't mean that you cannot be a strong chess player if you don't have a talent. So, for example, a friend of mine, grandmaster Pavel Maletin, he's not a very talented chess player, but he worked so hard, and once he even became a rapid he won a rapid championship in Russia. So he was like a rapid champion 1 year. But without extraordinary talent, you cannot become a world champion, for example, or even a national champion. Even if you work hard like Pavel. So why did Kasparov coach tell his mother that he didn't have talent? I have no ideas, to be honest. I don't know. But Kasparov definitely had talent. But those who don't have can compensate it. Well, you won't become a world champion, but you can still become strong enough. Strong enough, well, which level? At least 2000. If you work harder, 22. Then depends on how talented you are. If you have a little talent, or moderate talent, then you can get higher and higher. If you're a talented person, you can become like 2600, 2600 player. Well, is it enough to practice? Is it enough to compensate talent with practice? No, it's not. It is enough until 2000, I think. So regular work helps you to become a 2000 player, for example, even if you are absolutely with no talent. But higher, you should have at least a small piece of a talent. Okay, what else? Can I please ask you a question by video? What question? So you can unmute yourself and pronounce it. Yes. So, Peripheral, what's your question? One more time, please. So you want to show me the position? Yes. No, you can take that knight with your knight on c6. So, no. Yes, I see, but you can take it with c6 knight. There is a knight on c6 that can capture it. So I think they have to take your knight on e4. It looks scary, but if you analyze it a little deeper, even with the engine, you will realize that actually, no, it's promising for black. It's slightly better for black. Okay, you're welcome. Let's finish for today. Do you have anything else to ask me about? Oh, anyway, so if you have any questions or if you are looking for private coaching, you can message me at tricksofchess@gmail.com. Why not? Okay, thank you for the class and hope to see everyone at least next Sunday.